Good morning, kiddo. I love your hair. Do you want some breakfast? Can you say good morning? Say hello. Oh, good morning. It is a lovely morning this morning. No, it's not. It's a real, actually, it's like a wake me up when September ends kind of moment. It's raining, it's cold, and the wind is blowing. It's absolutely bloody miserable this morning. But sheep and chickens do not wait for warmer weather to get hungry. As you can hear them back there, they're ready for breakfast. Good morning, sheepy sheeps. Get some grain. There you go. Oh, don't fight each other. I better get the chickens fed here too. I took pity on the chickens and I just fed them inside their chicken house this morning. I know I shouldn't do that, but I feel bad for them. Pig. Here, pig. Come get your breakfast. I cannot begin to tell you how happy I am that we got this gravel in here and redid the driveway. It would have been an absolute slew in here a couple of days ago if we would have got this rain. Everything would be mud. Now we can at least walk across the yard without getting 10 pounds of mud on our boots. Well, it is now the evening and it has just stopped raining. It's rained most of the day actually. So, got mucky boots. And this is one thing we've said about living up here on the hill is we have all this clay soil. So we had friends over the other day and we got talking about the clay in our garden and how we're running the pigs in there to add organic material and have them stir in some added organic material. And they raised the question, well, why don't you just add sand? So there's been quite a few studies on soil amendments, and some people will add sand, some people will add cow manure, some people will add sheep manure, compost, peat moss, or in some cases even gypsum. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really want drywall on my potatoes. But it does work, and it works in the concept that what it does is it breaks up the soil structure. So clay soil and sand both are highly mechanical compositions that form at the atomic level, but they're very different. So the concept with adding sand to your clay is it makes the soil more workable. Now, while this is true, sometimes when sand is mixed with clay, what you can get is the tiny clay particles clinging to the crystalline structure of the sand and then compressing and compacting and forming what is a much harder and a much tighter bond. It can be very difficult to work that soil. Sand can affect the way that your soil drains. So clay, in many cases, can hold an incredible amount of water. If you add sand, you'll increase drainage. Now, depending on the terrain, the available biomass in your soil, drainage is not always your friend. Sometimes you need that moisture, especially in arid climates. You need that moisture to be available during times of drought or reduced rainfall. So Oregon State University did a study on this back in 2003, and the University of Saskatchewan did another one in, I think it was 2018, on what is really the best, most effective way to have a positive impact on clay soils when trying to get yield from your garden. Now, it's pretty much unanimous actually that although there are other amendments that will make your soil more workable, they will also have a negative impact on your yield. The best one if you want to impact your soil in a positive way for both yield and workability is undeniably organic matter. So that is adding things like peat moss, compost, manure to your garden. So if you want to look at all of those options, peat moss, number one, peat moss is probably some of the most effective in terms of moisture holding capability and nutrient holding capability and pH balance. The one issue there though is it's considered widely to be a non-renewable energy source. Peat moss is formed over, many years outside of a single person's lifetime. In some cases, tens of thousands of years to form peat moss. Compost, on the other hand, compost is readily available. It is also a good way to reduce waste, because you know, all of us, human beings are renowned for being wasteful individuals. If we can upcycle that organic material into basically a regeneration program through compost, and put it right back into the plant cycle and the soil cycle, there's a huge benefit to doing that. Manure, there's a lot of benefits to using manure, but if you're going to use unaged manure or uncomposted manure, just keep in mind that it can be very, very nitrogen heavy, and it can cause burns and scabbing, and you know, your soil is going to run a little rich, and you may see, I guess, yield reductions, but again, you can do soil sampling, like laboratory testing, to determine what type of soil you actually have and what the long-term benefits would be of running either peat moss, compost, or manure. But sand, big picture sand, you know, I mean, you've got to have some really, really aggressive clay soil to you know, to try and work in sand. And again, you have to get the balance just perfect, or you will actually counter effect what you're trying to accomplish. So on our farm here, you can see we're on the side of this slope here. We've got water coming off the side of the hill and running down. So we're using sheep in conjunction with chickens. They form this symbiotic relationship where as the sheep lay down their manure and they graze and whatever they waste, they trample and they add biomass to the soil. The chickens peck and scratch through that. They eat the bugs and they peck through the manure, and it works beautifully. Now when the sheep get housed for the winter, there's going to be lots of bedding, lots of manure that gets piled up. So in the spring, we take that out to the field and make a big compost pile. Then we take that compost pile the following year and throw that in our garden. We just got to feed the sheep here. They're getting quite noisy, so I'm going to give them a little bit of hay. Anyways, I just touched on gypsum and how I wouldn't recommend adding it to your clay soil. It's not that it doesn't work, but gypsum has to be added at a certain percentage. You have to get that ratio right. Otherwise, you can basically strip necessary minerals and nutrients from your soil. Anyways, speaking of nutrients and minerals, I can smell supper coming from the house. I'm not sure what Carmen's cooking, but it smells delicious. So I'm gonna let you go for now. I'm gonna go get my belly filled up. So I hope you have a fantastic evening. We'll see you tomorrow.